And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. As always, it's my great honor to welcome each and every one of you to another episode of the Midnight Ride with myself and John Pounders. Tonight, the Trump cipher. What does the year 2025 have to do with Donald Trump, Bible prophecy, and the ushering in of the final end time period? Find out tonight on the Midnight Ride, and you don't have to wait very long because we are now
live. What's up, guys? It's so good to be live with you guys here from the Puritan Barn. And man, tonight's broadcast is one of those broadcasts I wish I didn't even have to do. As a researcher, you start to come across all of these things, and you see lines starting to be connected when you just start drawing connections, and it's very seldom do you have so many dots. And so this is kind of a continuation of the episode that we did a couple weeks ago, the Trump cipher. And it didn't mean to be. It was actually about 2025, but it just seems that Donald Trump is so interwoven into most of these prophecies slash mystical ideas, and it's just mind-blowing. So I'm excited to do this broadcast tonight. Let us know how you guys are doing. How's your week been, David?
been very good, John. Been very good.
Awesome. So tonight, guys, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Links are in the descriptions over there, but you guys can check out all of the just beautiful things that they have to offer. Also, just check out our websites, NYSTV.org, new episodes of the Book of Enoch video commentary, also other documentaries, and then FOJCradio.com, where you can find a culmination of over 40 years of David and Donna's work with FOJC Radio. And so make sure you guys check that out. David, do you guys have any broadcasts that you guys have coming up this week?
Of course we do. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central Time on our FOJC Radio Rumble channel. Porky's Dirty Little Secrets continued. What's really going on with our food supply, what we need to know about it. So join us at 8 p.m. Central on our FOJC Radio Rumble channel.
Very cool, David. So if you don't have anything else, I guess we can get started on the ride. Are you ready?
Let's ride.
All right, guys. So we're going to get started here, and I just want to say that if you missed this episode, the Trump cipher, which was 2 weeks ago, I suggest that after watching this that you go check it out, because it will add many, many dots to what I'm going to be talking about here tonight. And I want to read a couple scriptures to get us started, because I think that it's important that we understand that there are hidden things going on in the world that we're living in, and a lot of them are hidden in plain sight, and a lot of things are being revealed. So this is Luke 12:2-3. It says, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops." And then in Luke 8:17, "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." And when I see those things, it really, there's a chance that you're feeling either happy to hear these things, or that it makes you shiver to hear these things. And there's a group of people out there in the world that shiver when they hear these words that Jesus spoke here, because this is, I believe we're in that time period where this stuff is coming to pass, and we're starting to see it unfold in front of our faces. And so I'm excited to talk about this and to just bring it out to the table, because I'm not making any predictions, nor am I going to give my opinion on what all this means together, because I don't really honestly know, but I can see that there's so many connections here that it's really hard to pass up the opportunity to speak about these things. And so I titled this episode 2025 Things You Need to Know. As I started looking into 2025, I realized that there are very many indicators that this time period of 2025 is going to be an important year, and I'll explain those things throughout this broadcast. And there's everything that I'm going to be presenting tonight is very important, even down to the very last thing. So it was hard to kind of gauge it by, well, this is more important, so I'm going to do this here, or this is more important, because really all the way down to the end it is. I'm going to try not to go over an hour because I know your guys' time is valuable, but I want to make sure that we get a full scope of a lot of these things. This could have easily be 2 or 3 broadcasts, so I'm going to get through this with you guys tonight. So the reason I looked into 2025, and we've done broadcasts speaking of this before, because of the Deagle site. There's a website, deagle.com, and this site is a culmination of intelligentsia that get together and they post what they believe the population of certain of all countries are going to be, GDP, etc. And they've been pretty much dead on for a very, very long time. Now, you can't find this on the website anymore, but I remember doing a broadcast in around 2021, 2022, speaking of this and having this screenshot, and there's a lot of other people that have spoken on this as well. You can find many topics broadcast, but if you look at a lot of these countries, I mean, it's a lot of people that listen are from some of these countries, but there's more. But the United States of America seems to drop 200 million people, so 68.5% population change in 2025. A lot of very high level people who are what you would be calling elites have said that this is when the great coaling is happening. There's something getting ready to take place. A lot of people have been talking about this and feeling this for a while, but this Deagle report made me want to look into 2025 a little bit more. I also saw a few reels that were going around where people would Google search all the different years, and there was all these different memes for that year, but when you go to 2025, there was nothing. It was just like it was blank for some reason or another. And so somebody that you guys should be familiar with, she actually took the reins for me for a couple weeks when I was out of town, and she also does a lot of Instagram stuff on Instagram. She does stuff on Instagram, and her name's Jillian. She did something about the show we're going to be doing tonight, and she actually is crazy because I saw this today after I'd been doing this broadcast. And it's something that was brought to my attention as well, because a lot of you guys are this is going to ring a bell when you hear what she's saying here, and also with the clips that I'm going to play after that. So I'm going to play this. And we've also done shows on the Marine Kingdom not that long ago, speaking about the idea of the Nephilim coming from the water, and the fact that these water spirits and these water gods are the ones who form these nations, and how the maritime kingdom actually has control of the commerce and control of most of the world. It sits on many waters. So anyways, here's this video by Jillian. You guys check this out.
Marine Kingdom is rising, and if you believe in Jesus, you will pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you. Since November 6th, the media has been sparking with rumors that we are entering into a new golden age. And as soon as I heard that term, immediately the Holy Spirit grabbed me with discernment. Golden Age is described as the age that falls within the rule of Kronos, the god of time. Peace and harmony prevailed during this age. Humans did not have to work to feed themselves, for the earth provided food in abundance. They lived to very old age, but with a youthful appearance, and eventually died peacefully. Their spirits live on as guardians. He describes these men as daemons upon the earth. Similarities between the historical golden age and this new golden age with an upcoming incumbent presidency. It's very shocking. Additionally, the golden age is directly linked to the age of Aquarius, which as of yesterday, November 19th, we entered into and will remain that way until 2043. And the Kabbalistic Zohar states that all celestial treasures and hidden riddles will be solved in the age of Aquarius. Many occult beliefs, such as the New Age, also describe this as a new era that we are entering into that will unlock new knowledge, such as transhumanism or the Nephilim agenda. And this Nephilim agenda starts with the Marine Kingdom.
All right, so that's the video that she did. Very, very good video. Just kind of sums up a lot about this age of Aquarius. I want to play one more video, David, and then I want to get comments from you before we move on to kind of the next section here. This is video here is Donald Trump. We're going to play this real quick.
This will be America's new golden age. It's going to happen quickly, too, very quickly. Every problem facing us can be solved, but now the fate of our nation is in your hands.
All right, so that is that clip. And then this is Melania Trump walking out to the song Age of Aquarius, throwing up the V symbol, the Venus symbol, and it's very interesting. So here we go.
Trump. We're not sure why they picked this song. For Melania Trump's entrance, this astrological Taurus flashed a peace sign.
So that's interesting too, because I was looking up her astrological sign, which is something that they made point to mention. And for a certain period of time, Taurus is actually going to be within this Aquarius period. It's really, really interesting the way they phrased all this stuff. So everything they say has meaning. As we've talked about before, the elites very much so believe in the movement and the tracking of the stars. Just going back to like the ancient times when the Babylonians used the stars for everything, including the king's decisions. They had their soothsayers and all of this. So anyways, David, I'm going to leave this here for just a minute, and I want to get something. I know your brain's moving right now. I see the cogs turning in your mind right now. So I want to get some comments from you.
Well, words have meaning, and there's no doubt that the Trump agenda is tied to the term golden age, the age of Aquarius. There's so much hype and enthusiasm for Mr. Trump, and few of these people would ever consider, and especially the professed Christians now that are supporting Mr. Trump, few of them would even consider the fact that perhaps this might have a hidden agenda, that this really might be a nefarious age that is coming in. I think this could be a tremendous sucker punch.
Yeah, it could get really interesting, and I don't think, and I'm not saying that even Trump would even be aware of the lining up of all of these things, which I would assume that he is. He's a smart guy. I'm assuming that he has all the people around him that know all about this stuff and are able to point these things out. But this gets interesting. So in the video, Jillian mentioned Chronos. Now, the reason this all gets interesting is because we have a current sitting president who is a student of Kabbalah, also is considered he was crowned in Jerusalem. If you guys saw the episode that we did on Trump before, you'll see that. And he's also on a coin, and he put the embassy of the United States in Israel. And so this aspect of Chronos makes it very interesting as well. I want to show you guys this. So as you guys can see, and this is even the oldest depictions of this hexagram, which is a six-sided star, goes to the celestial being Saturn here. Okay, so you see up here at the top, there's one traced here. This is where you get Metatron's cube. This is the six-pointed star, the cube, the black cube, and this Chronos and Saturn are actually the same exact entity. You see that in Judaism, also in Islamic worship, the black cube is a huge point of worship. It connects with the black and white Jehovah, the idea that Saturn is what a lot of people believe, that Saturn would be connected to Jehovah, the God of the Bible, which kind of goes to Gnosticism, where the idea of Yaldabaoth being a demiurge. But Saturn is, if you would believe what is written about him by the enemy, Saturn is this evil god that eats his children and is very much so connected to the God Jehovah. And this is why you see the Jews that have the black cube on their head when they do their rituals. This is why there's a journey to the cube in Mecca. This is something that there's several sites all over the world that have this black cube. And if you haven't noticed, one of the most wealthy, if not the most wealthy investment companies in the world, they're called BlackRock. So we have a lot of connections to Saturn in this presidency, in a lot of this. And if Saturn is believed by the Jews and by Trump and by others to be the God Jehovah, this would make a lot of sense why Saturn is deeply tied in to this. And also the God of time. And I'm going to have you comment to this picture here, David. This is Kronos, the God of time, Father Time, standing behind the Virgin. And as she's weeping here, mourning, explain in Freemasonry Kronos, the God of time, David. You've talked about this before in broadcasts, and if you have any insights into this, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and this appears in almost every Masonic monitor of every state. And here we have the broken column in Freemasonry, and we have the widow here holding the leaf. And in Freemasonry, one of the designations of the Freemasonry is the widow's son. Is there no help for the widow's son is their grand hailing sign of distress. And the widow is specifically explained as Isis, the goddess. And just like the Isis and Osiris in Freemasonry was the one that, and in the mystery religions, that his body was cut up into a lot of little pieces, and they recovered every part but one. And the phallus of Osiris, this represents the lost word of Freemasonry, according to Manly Palmer Hall. And in the specific Luciferian teachings, every one of the Freemasons is one of the sons of Isis. And Freemasonry is goddess worship, among many just rank paganism. But this represents, and of course this before that, in the Babylonian, it was the woman weeping for Tammuz, and they're holding in her hand the symbol of the evergreen, or the regeneration, there in her right hand.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the most ancient depictions of the hexagram being used are in the Babylonians' rituals, where they would draw two triangles, one upward facing, one downward facing, creating this hexagon. They would draw the circle around the hexagon and stand in the middle to do hexes, so that it would be a protection sigil for them from these dark entities that they're doing. But it's interesting to me that Kronos, Saturn, this whole idea, really, it didn't really dawn on me so much that that Saturn may in fact be who the synagogue actually worships. They may believe that this is Jehovah, and the Bible does say that many would go in error in their ways, thinking the stars and the celestial beings are gods. But there is something unique about Saturn, which a lot of people believe that hexagram and these rings are actually some way broadcasting reality to Earth, because these rings, they don't really understand how they work, if they're like an antenna of sorts, to where it's broadcasting, and there seems to be a swirling mass going around, which makes Saturn unique and different in a lot of ways. So that's another reason I brought this up, because there's just something unique about Saturn.
There's a scientist, he's passed away now. He wrote in the 1800s. Isaac Newton Vail was his name. Mm-hmm. And he wrote about and he documented from a lot of sources how that Kronos, Saturn, was the god that was worshipped in the antediluvian time, to whom child and human sacrifice was made to.
Yeah.
And his theory was, and it was a very good one, he expounds it in, I have a couple of his books, was that the reason why that they called the god Saturn is that before the flood, that the earth had rings like Saturn, and that the vapor canopy we read about in the book of Genesis, when it says the windows of heaven were opened, he believed that they were rings and that they collapsed in a succession of time. And that was his theory, and he had a lot of stuff to back it up. I found it deeply fascinating.
It is fascinating, and that really kind of brings, there's this theory here, this fascinating theory that I heard, that kind of, I wouldn't say it backs up that theory, but it adds interest to it. So there are those that believe, in which you can see this in ancient texts, that Saturn was actually the original sun, because in the Babylonian Greek text they call it Helios, Ra, Sol, and also Shamash and Helios in the Greek. And so this is what it was called originally, and then it kind of transferred from Saturn to the sun that we have now, which I don't know if this is biblically sound or not, but I do know that in the New Age, in the New Time, in the Scripture, it talks about the sun being gone, and that God is actually the sun sitting there and will be the light for us. So a new light source is attached with a new age. And I don't know if this could tie into Velikovsky's idea and all of this, but there's some interest there as far as I'm concerned.
And most definitely, Velikovsky wrote about how that what we would refer to the planet Mars and Venus were originally traveling asteroids, and that was, he taught what has been called catastrophism, which I would agree with, that instead of the changes in the earth happening over millions and millions of years, that this happened because of catastrophes, and a lot of these were because of the erratic movement of the bodies in the second heaven. And there's gobs of text to where the sky, as was described by the Egyptians and the Babylonians, is not the same that we see today. Things are out of place, and Saturn being one of them that they all mention. And, the idea that these were just a bunch of dumb bumpkins that didn't know what they were doing, I can't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
They were very meticulous and very intelligent in the study of the heavenly luminaries. So I think there's something to that. I really do.
And I think it's really interesting to me, too, that they ascribe the golden age where people didn't have to work for food, because we know that would have to be after the fall of man, right? Because after the fall of man, after Adam and Eve sinned, they had to work for their food from then on. That was part of the curse. And so this idea that Kronos or Saturn was the god before this fall is interesting to me, because obviously the texts about Kronos from the pagan standpoint are very negative, right? Saturn is considered this ape of a man that eats his own children and just like very roguish, thuggish. But if you really think about it, is it possible that the reason that they treat him so badly in their texts is because, as always, they're against the possible idea of God the Father, and maybe this is possibly where there could be a throne at. I mean, there's all these theories out there that just go through my mind. So,
and you think about it, before the fall of man, they dwelt in eternity, if you will.
Yeah.
There was no time. And the book of Revelation says that when the Lord returns, it says time will be no more.
Yeah.
So time is something that's unique to our realm of existence. God dwells in a realm where there is no time.
Yeah. And he also says, and he separates the beginning from the end as far as time goes, and so there's it's just interesting.
It's very deep, mind-blowing concepts. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He can stand at the beginning of time and at the end of time at the same time.
It's interesting. So I'm going to play another clip that's interesting. Now, I'm just going to play it and then we'll talk about it. How about that? Here we go.
The ancient Essenes, the inhabitants of Qumran. Lots of people, they know the Essenes from the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered there in the 1940s. What they don't know And by the way, this has only been unearthed in the last 50 years. Archaeologists have also recovered prophecies that the Essenes made, and even material that illustrates who the Essenes were. 150 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, the Essenes began prophesying about the first advent of the coming of the Messiah. They said that he would come at a time when a king named Herod would be a king and he would turn evil. They said he would die in the year 32 AD, which is what scholars believe exactly happened. They said he will die not only for Jewish people, but he will be sacrificed for the Gentiles as well, and give birth to an age of grace that would extend for a period of 2,000 years. The list literally goes on and on. We're going to produce a documentary film in 2021 about all of this. But why am I bringing this all up now? Because they also prophesied this, that mankind, now this was over 2,000 years ago, these highly accurate prophets called the Essenes who lived in Qumran, they predicted that mankind will enter its final age. Guess when? In the year 2025. There are a massive amount of indicators that 2025 is a pivotal year that the world needs to be paying attention to.
Now, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff written in that book that Tom Horn. In fact, I haven't even read it, but I know he's got a very dispensationalist outlook, etc. But the idea that 2025 is even mentioned in Essene Prophecies is something interesting to me. I know that another book was written about the lost or hidden Qumran prophecies by Josh Peck, which I'd be interested to read further. If anybody else has any ideas on these prophecies or can point me to exactly which ones they are, I'd be very interested. But I wanted to include that because actually Tom Horn, you've got this book over there, David. He wrote a book. If you'd hold it up, it's called Zeitgeist 2025. And so Tom Horn believed, based off of what I could understand about what he believed, and let me pull this slide up here. He believed, then I'm just going to read his quote here. It says, assuming for the moment that I am right, and that the asteroid Apophis is the biblical wormwood, and therefore 2029 represents a time around the middle of the Great Tribulation period when the trumpet judgment begins, Monday, October 13th, 2025. So he even put a date down there. Would be the approximate start date of the 7 years of the tribulation foreseen in Scripture, Revelation 7:14, Daniel 12:1, and this is from his book, also The Lost Prophecies of Qumran and the Return of Old Saturn's Reign. So I didn't realize this, but he also connected Saturn into this as well. David, I don't know, you've got the book there. Have you read it? And if you have, do you have any quotes from it that could add to what we're talking about here?
Well, I have Mr. Horn's book, Wormwood, which he believes that the asteroid Apophis is going to come in the middle of the tribulation period. And Mr. Horn, being a dispensationalist, he's going to look at the material that I would, he's going to come to vastly different conclusions because he's looking at it through the lens of dispensationalism, the 7-year tribulation period, pre-trib rapture, and all of the things which I reject. Also rejecting the heliocentric cosmology and NASA. You know, these calculations are based upon NASA statistics, which, you know, NASA is not a straight answer. So my view of NASA isn't very benevolent either. So I yet remain to be shown that is in the Qumran prophecies. I'm going to have to be from Missouri here. I'm going to have to see it point in line, and I haven't seen it point in line yet. So at this point, I'm just going to have to say I remain skeptical. Now, I do think, and I addressed this in the show I did with Dan Badandi, that I do think there could be something to this Apophis, but I would lean toward believing that it's an entity, not an asteroid.
Yeah, because Apophis was the god of darkness and chaos.
Yeah.
That comes down, and you know, it's interesting that he was willing to kind of put himself on the line for 2025 and for those dates. I'm interested to see what happens in 2025. There's another thing I want to read here about 2025. This is from The Externalization of the Hierarchy. Now, this was written in 1957 by Alice Bailey, by formerly at the time Lucifer Trust Publishing Company, now called Lucas Trust Publishing Company. And Lucas Trust Publishing Company and the UN are very tightly connected. Lucas Trust endorses the UN very heavily. And something you have to know about the UN as well, they have a I can't remember exactly what they call it, but equivalent to watchers on top of Mount Hermon on that is where their base is. So there's a lot of connections with the UN, Lucas Trust, Lucifer Trust, and this in this book written and published in 1957, written much earlier than that, it actually speaks of the year 2025, and I'm going to read the two references that I found in this book, and there may be more. If you've read this book and you can point me to more of these, then let me know. So I'm going to read this first one here. This is in page 363. And just actually a little bit more background on what the externalization of the hierarchy actually is. So this hierarchy is an invisible hierarchy they deem as the masters, like the masters of the Great White Lodge that is in the sky. And these masters, the head of this mastership is actually considered Christ according to the externalization of the hierarchy, and they would convene every 100 years, and there is a time period when they will externalize and once again present themselves to humanity and to mankind. And as of right now, according to this book, they have men set up in place, great teachers, all of these different people set up all over the world to bring in this agenda. And so this is on page 363. It says, I have made this practical application and this immediate illustration of teaching anent glamour, illusion, and Maya because the whole world problem has reached a crisis today, and because its clarification will be the outstanding theme of all progress, educational, religious, and economic until 2025 AD. Now we're going to go again on page 530 of this book, and I'm going to read a paragraph and a half here. Really, the whole chapter is interesting. It says, thus a great and new movement is proceeding, and taking a tremendous increased interplay and interaction is taking place. This will go on until AD 2025. During the years intervening between now and then, very great changes will be seen taking place, and at the great General Assembly of the Hierarchy, held as usual every century, in 2025, the date in all probability will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. The present cycle from until that date is called technically the stage of the forerunner. It is a preparatory in nature, testing in its methods, and intended to be revelatory in its techniques and results. You can see, therefore, that Cohen's masters, initiatives, world disciples, and aspirants affiliated with the hierarchy are all at this time passing through a cycle of great activity. And it talks about a Messiah type figure entering the stage, etc. And so all of this work that has been going on behind the scenes culminates at 2025, and then we have this age of Aquarius, this new thing that takes place, and this is this book in general is a book that very much so is the world leaders are invested in seeing come to pass. Even if the prophecies aren't correct, they would love to see this 2025 thing come to pass. David, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Well, it's really amazing that Alice Bailey, who is the queen of the New Age movement, as connected as anyone can, here prophesies that 2025 is their year, when their guys are going to show up and take over, if you will. And it's also interesting that this golden age on the right-wing conservatives, they also say this is going to begin in 2025. I would just pose the ridiculous question, could it be that they're one and the same? Could it be that this agenda and this movement coming in could be the same one that was spoken of by Miss Bailey?
Well, we're going to see a little bit more about that agenda here in a minute once we get kind of into it. But David, you've done a lot of shows about the theosophy, about Alice Bailey, for instance. You actually just gave me another book here today by these people because you had an extra one. So tell me more about their idea of what Christ is and what this Messiah figure is. Before we go further, I'd like to kind of understand, because I haven't read all of their literature. I've read some. What do they see as the Christ? Because it seems like, from what I read in this book, there's this tendency for them to say that Christ is the same Christ that's in the Bible, but then there's also this different names that they give him, almost like he's an avatar.
Yeah.
So explain that to me, please.
Yeah, they believe in the manifestation of the avatars, and they have many that they look to, Kumi, and many that they speak of as people, and like Maitreya, that actually live in physical bodies on the earth that are hundreds of years old. Comte Saint Germain was another one that was in the court of Louis XIV. And it's just really amazing how that these people can think that the Christ is not Jesus Christ, but it's a person in the New Age concept that achieves Christ consciousness. They're all Christ. It's the New Age principle that all people have that spark of divinity within them. And this is their basic belief there.
Okay, so they would believe in more of a universalist idea of achieving Christhood rather than Christ being the specific one who came to do this.
Yeah, they absolutely reject the biblical idea that Jesus Christ is the virgin-born Son of God, died upon the cross for our sins. They believe that divinity resides within all of humanity, and that the problem is ignorance, lack of gnosis, that if you just realize that you are God and through occult practices come to a spiritual realization of that, you can achieve this Christ consciousness.
And it's interesting that they use these terms, externalization of the hierarchy, because you spoke earlier about, America and the symbolism surrounding this hexagram and these spirits, but you have this kind of dynamic in Washington, D.C., where you have the phallic symbol, and then you have the womb as the Capitol building, and you have this raising of Osiris ceremony that takes place in every inauguration. And it's interesting to me that this one in particular that's going to be going down coincides with their idea of the possible bringing in of this Messiah and this whole ritual, and then their idea of binding these 72 spirits in order to be able to take full control. It's just mind-blowing to me. So they would be right on with that, because in their idea, the Messiah is whoever tends to raise at that particular time to be the anointed one for that movement.
Yeah. And just like the you spoke of there in the apotheosis of George Washington, which we've all seen, of the 72 stars and the gods, Washington is seen as a resurrected god up there floating around the Capitol roof there with all Zeus and all of the other gods up there. Mm-hmm. And of course, in Washington's tomb, the old joke, who's buried in Grant's tomb? Well, who's buried in Washington's tomb? The answer is not Washington, nobody, because he was moved there from there to Mount Vernon. There's a message there. The grave's empty, he's risen. He's up on the top of the Capitol dome. And every American president is seen in a continuation of that in the eyes of the occultist. And just like in the writings of Manly Palmer Hall, the secret destiny of America, they've been talking for a long time. It's America's secret destiny to one day have the man show up.
Yeah.
You know, and that ain't the man that believers are talking about.
Well, I mean, we boil it down to America's foundations, and we did a show, I don't even remember what it was called now, but it kind of broke a lot of that down, all the way down to the height of certain things, etc. But when people think about who formed our framework, like Ben Franklin, who was a member of the Hellfire Club, they found human sacrifice had been taking place underneath his house when they went to renovate his location. You have John Adams, who was a deist of sort, but he hated Christianity. All of these people were part of the fabric of starting our country. So this gets really interesting.
It really does. My goodness, anyone that has ever read, Thomas Paine wrote the pamphlet that really ignited the common person to get on board with the revolution. He was about as virulent a Christ hater as you could ever imagine. He was rankly blasphemous.
Yeah, it's when you really look at the history of some of this is amazing. Now, what I'm getting ready to show you is a video of a Hopi tribesman, I believe a chief, and he is going to be talking about the prophecy of the man in the red hat. And I'm going to play the whole thing because I thought it's very interesting, especially considering we're entering 2025 and what he's talking about here and how, when the show we did about Donald Trump, could he be the Antichrist? And I'm going to say it again because there's always some guy on there that's like, you said this, and look, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we did a show about it. It's interesting. There's always that possibility. But considering that, let's check out this video here.
I was wondering about who are those people that's going to purify this land? How are they going to do it? So they explained to me, we have a gourd rattle that we still use in our ceremony. And that gourd rattle represents the world. On one side, this figure is on the drawing. And another one is on this side. That'll be a gourd rattle. We still use them. The one old man told me, take a look. Whoever has this symbol in this world going to shake us up 2 times. And it just came to me quickly. And I wondered, what nation have shown something similar to this one? Because they will be very intelligent people. They're going to produce many inventions of all types. They're going to be so powerful that they're going to use that to shake us up real hard. And they're going to almost destroy themselves. But later, out of it, a new generation is going to rise. This time they will know what to do in the right manner, for right purpose. Then around it, there's a sun symbol. Those people are very intelligent people that have that symbol. They have produced many things, invent many things. And they become powerful. And they also shake us up 2 times. Second time, with the help of another. These 2 have shook us up 2 times real hard, warning us. And they almost destroy themselves. But out of it, a new generation is coming, stronger, much better equipment, everything, powerful things going to be developed by these 2 people. Then the third one that will finally bring about purification of this land in this continent would be a man with red cap, red hat, or red cloak. Now, we do not know who that nation is or what people, but they say those people will have a large population, and they will also have much scientific inventions of all types. Very powerful nation going to be. So once you start moving, these others 2 will join him with all their power and might. The 3 of them going to come here quickly together, and nothing can stop them. This time they're going to come right here. They say even they're going to come here so fast they come here for breakfast. Now this is nice clear day today, calm, everything nice. Tomorrow morning maybe we get up at breakfast time, then the whole sky will be darkened. Old man said, I don't know what will cause the darkening of the sky. Then he said people will be raining from the sky. And in one day they're going to get control of this whole continent. and they're going to cut us up into 4 sections. And they're going to look for a leader that still remains, a native leader, still remaining to the spiritual path. And to him, they will gather people here to him. And they will say, now these people, I gave them the religion and the duty to produce things, to invent things, and to become powerful people. When they came here, what have they been doing to you? Now, suppose he was the last chief still remaining in this area. They will ask him, and they will say, well, those people have destroyed my people. They have taken care of and taken everything from my people, land, rivers, and hunting rights, and everything that I used. They just took it away from me against my opposition. Then those that have done that, what we call purification, would be the real wicked people. People have taken advantage of them in that manner. These figures had no heads on them. That will be their supreme punishment. Because right in daylight, right in public, they're going to weed out those bad people, and they're going to chop their heads off, they said. And that is what they said will happen. That's first punishment. Then they say, what about these people here? And he will look at them and said, well, at least they make an attempt to help us. They did try to do something to help us, protect us. And they will pull out all those people. They will know you can't get away. They said they'll have some means of catching you. And they will bring those people. There'll be a lot of those people. Then they will say, look, you have disturbed this land, life, these people. You have polluted their rivers and land and everything. Now you go and clean it up. And whoever survives out of that will be able to stay with the leader here. Then they say, what about these people? These people have really suffered, been persecuted and laughed at. They've been punished, and they've been beat up also, because they really stood by me. And they will pull out those people, and they will be brought to him, and they will be respected. That is what they say will happen at this period by the people that has this symbol and man with red cap and red cloak. They will come from east direction, from where the sun rises. And they will come here quickly. And they will have something to paralyze all man-made machinery. Everything come to a standstill. All power will go out. All man-made machinery will come to a standstill. And we will be helpless when they just come and take it over. And this is what they will happen to by those people that are coming from the east direction. Now, if those people are commissioned by the Great Spirit to do that for the Great Spirit, if we can't clean it ourselves here, and if they fail, then...
So I'm going to go ahead and just stop it there, because he just kind of continues on to talk about some other things. But a very interesting Hopi prophecy, and of course there's other Hopi prophecies that are also really interesting, and we find some very interesting origin stories as well from the Hopi prophecy about ant people living underground, etc. And so, David, there's a couple things that stood out to me in there. One being the idea of these men that were from the before order coming down out of the sky, which reminds me of UFOs, UAPs, the kind of stuff we're seeing now. And then there's that connection to this externalization of the hierarchy, because in the intro and then the opening sections, they were saying that they are approaching Earth, getting closer and closer, and they'll start making themselves known closer to the time. And I would assume that if we're talking about UAPs, UFOs, and this kind of activity, that this could be what we're seeing referred to here, because you've talked about that technology having to do with people that, to put it in a way that, won't mess with anything, but that bore that symbol that he showed there. So anyways, do we expand on that a little bit?
Well, there's the obvious connection of the swastika, or the backward swastika, which would, of course, immediately make us think of Germany and Operation Paperclip. And it's interesting that, the paperclip scientists we had several thousand, 3 to 5,000 with the families come into paperclip, and an equal amount went into Russia. And that technology developed not only the American weaponry and super weapons and exotic weapons of that type, but also in the Russian. And what seems to be the constant theme is our people are going to show up. And, we could definitely connect that with the UFO. And it's interesting with the ant people in the marvelous underground adventures of Baron von Trump and his dog Bulger. They went down through the giant well, and what do they say? They saw ant people. Of course they did. They saw ant people down there. So it could be, and the theme is, the hierarchy is going to externalize itself. We're going to see real flesh and bone people take over and rule. Now, it could be that it's going to come down in some kind of an ET scenario, or it could be that they're already here.
Yeah, and a lot of people were even saying, too, that not just based off the people that are already in our borders, but that a lot of this stuff they're coming from the ocean, which kind of goes back to the water kingdom thing, the age of Aquarius, ushering in the water kingdom type activity. There's just so much there. And then this idea of the red hat, and I kind of just looked into a little bit about what does red signify in Freemasonry, what does it signify red hats in general, and one of the most common things that I found on the search was red hats in as far as computer technology goes. So like this kind of made me think of Q, etc. But a red hat hacker, I'm just going to show you guys this here. Red hats are often characterized as vigilantes. Like white hats, red hats cease to disarm black hats. Black hats are the bad guys. But the two groups' methodologies are significantly different. Rather than hand a black hat over to authorities, red hats launch aggressive attacks against them to bring them down, often destroying the black hat's computer and resources. In Freemasonry, red is considered to be a very important color in Freemasonry as it represents energy, vitality, and life force. It is believed to represent the power of God as well as the power of man. Red also stands for purity and innocence as well as justice and truth. In Masonic ceremonies, red is often seen as a reminder of the bloodshed by those who bravely fighting for freedom and justice. The use of red in Masonic rituals can also be seen in decorations and symbols. The most common symbol associated with Freemasonry is the square and compass, which are both bordered with red to signify strength, courage, and faithfulness. Other Masonic symbols, such as the all-seeing eye, are also usually surrounded by a deep red border or made entirely from this powerful hue to represent vigilance and strength against evil forces. And this is from esotericfreemason.com. So there's this idea of battling against the dark forces, and I think that if you look at if a lot of people, when they heard that red hat, they were thinking, man, Trump wears a red hat. This seems to coincide. I think that his whole platform has been based off of draining the swamp, getting rid of the deep state, getting rid of the dark forces that are surrounding this stuff. So it's interesting to note that this is kind of the symbology of the red hat. Can you think of anything, David, the red hat, anything that rings a bell biblically or in esoteric literature that you can think of?
No, it would kind of, to me, in my mind, would be symbolic of revolution.
Yeah.
And red, well, we've got the old bear, the Russian bear portrayed as red, and also red China. So there's a lot of symbolism there, but I don't know. It just remains a little ambiguous and elusive to where we can't really make a definitive call there.
One of the things in that Hopi prophecy that made me think of Russia as well, where it talks about the earth being divided into 4 quarters in Revelation 20, when Gog and Magog, Gog being the principality that is over Magog, which Magog would be, most people would consider Russia, China, probably Turkey, all of those kind of eastern areas there. And he actually gains control over all 4 quarters of the earth to go to war against God's people during that time period. And that kind of brought something to my mind there when he said that the earth is divided into four corners, and there's this one main chief who is given the power to bring all of them kind of together against these people that they deem to be the destroyers of the earth in this prophecy. So, all right, so I'm going to play this. This is going to the Project 2025. This is what a lot of people were talking about there for a while and still actually talking about. I have a news clip to play that was just released less than 24 hours ago concerning Project 2025, which is interesting because it's a great follow-up to the video that I'm getting ready to play for you guys. So here we go.
The liberal state.
This Project 2025 blueprint is backed by more than 100 conservative groups, and it is presented as a vision built by conservatives for conservatives. We asked the Heritage Foundation for an interview. In an emailed statement, a spokesman said the Project 2025 team is unavailable at the moment for an interview. Now let's go back to Schedule F and stay tuned here because it is complicated, but it is at the very heart of all this. Schedule F was an executive order signed by Donald Trump in 2020 in his last months as president. He never acted on it because he lost the election soon after. But had he actioned it, Schedule F would have given him presidential control over the rights and protections for tens of thousands of civil servants, allowing him to hire and fire them at will. During Trump's first term, he often grew frustrated with federal government employees. He felt they were preventing him from enacting his policy agenda. If they were guardrails, he saw them as barriers.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
The order aims to replace government employees with political appointees, those loyal to the president. So a president who takes all this up could fire scientists calling for greater action on climate change or birth control, and replace them with loyal, even unqualified employees who would roll back or dismantle existing policies and without congressional approval.
Reinstating Schedule F is a top priority for Project 2025 and for Donald Trump.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
And this is where Project 2025 comes back in with their conservative LinkedIn.
March into office and bring a new army of aligned, trained, and essentially weaponized conservatives ready to do battle against the deep state.
The plans have become so controversial that Donald Trump has tried to distance himself from the project after months of Democrats sounding the alarm. He's realized maybe that it's become a political liability, and so he's claimed to know nothing of Project 2025 or the people behind it. But how credible is that, really?
Trump and Roberts know each other well. Here they are on a private jet together in 2022. Trump has spoken at heritage events. Listen to this endorsement.
With Kevin and the staff, and I met so many of them now, I took pictures with among the most handsome, beautiful people I've ever seen. I didn't like that picture. If you could lose that picture, please, would you, Kevin? But this is a great, no, he says I won't do that. This is a great group, and they're gonna lay the groundwork and detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America, and that's coming.
Yet, at a rally in Michigan this summer, he said this.
Like some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. I mean, some of them I know who they are, but they're very, very conservative, just like you have. They're sort of the opposite of the radical left.
So there we are, two entirely contradictory statements by the same man about the same group.
I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
It does seem clear, though, that many of Project 2025's policies do overlap with Trump's official policy proposals called Agenda 47.
In a conversation with the tech billionaire Elon Musk on X, Trump said that he would dismantle the Department of Education if he wins the White House in November.
And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk, I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states.
I think you're making a good point.
That policy, for one, is included in this Project 2025.
On education, the handbook says that federal education policy should be limited and ultimately the Federal Department of Education should be eliminated. The president of the Heritage Foundation has praised what he sees as the dovetailing of Project 2025 and Trump's Agenda 47, saying the overlap is tremendous. When asked for his reaction to Trump's dismissal of Project 2025, he said, "Well, I think that's the sign of a great leader who understands that he's in a terrific political news cycle, so no hard feelings from any of us at Project 2025 about the statement because we understand that Trump is the standard bearer and he's making a political, tactical decision there." At least 140 people linked to Project 2025 served in some form in Trump's last administration. Reporters for two investigative organisations called Documented and ProPublica have obtained 14 hours worth of private training videos for Project 2025. They found that 29 of the 36 speakers in the videos have worked for Trump in some capacity.
Hello, my name is Jeff Small. I was a presidential appointee in the Trump administration.
I am a former political appointee in the Donald J. Trump administration.
I served as the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. And I was also a spokesman at the Department of Justice.
And you stayed until the final hour.
Yeah. Shocking that I made it.
Yes. It's amazing.
The spin is that this is an agenda overwhelmingly popular among conservatives.
In these rallies among Trump's base, many of the policies seem popular enough, but beyond here, well, not so much. The question, unanswered for now, is whether Project 2025 really does form a blueprint for a Trump second term. If he wins, and it does, well then America will need to brace for fundamental political and societal change.
All right, so keeping in mind what he said there, Trump said about that, we're going to watch this video. This was just released less than 24 hours ago.
President and CEO of Media Matters. Angelo, voila. It turns out the Trump administration is full of Project 2025 people. Tom Homan, his pick for border czar, was a contributor. John Ratcliffe, Trump's nominee for CIA director, contributor. Brendan Carr, Trump's pick to run the Federal Communications, contributor, wrote the chapter on the FCC. Pete Huckstra, his pick for ambassador to Canada, contributor. And Stephen Miller, his pick for deputy chief of staff for policy, contributor. And Russ Vought, of course, obviously. And then I will add the person who put together this personnel database that he's putting together, John McEntee, also tied to it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why it's important to note that their denials didn't hold up and that they're beginning to implement this is that it's so much bigger than that policy book. You know, Project 2025 was really the professionalization of MAGA. And it was designed to sort of, squeeze as much juice out of the orange out of that first year, not just to implement their policies, but to literally shock the system so that they have smooth runway after that, to basically subdue all and eliminate all of the safeguards and norms that would typically prevent or slow down or be speed bumps in sort of undermining democracy or misusing the government or all sorts of other things. And so this latest example is, you had the policy book, which was all the ideas, the aspirations of Project 2025. So now we can use the validation that they're moving forward with it to figure out where they're going. And here's where they are. The other part of it was the personnel database. And it's not just the names that are going to be talked about in the news. It's going to be hundreds or thousands of individuals. And that was really always the tell, is that it didn't matter whether or not they disavowed Project 2025. The fact is, all the personnel that Trump could have hired were already part of that project. They had been pre-vetted. They had been determined where they'd be maximally slotted in. The personnel is policy, and those are going to be the people that implement it. And now tonight with the news about Russ Vought, it's worth noting that he wrote a piece of Project 2025 called The Playbook, which was designed to be kept private. It was the 180, the first 180 days look like. It's the compilation of all the executive orders, all the internal instructions for agencies, all the legal memos that are required to sort of legitimize or validate instructions. It is going to be the full-scale implementation of what everybody was talking about in the summer that they didn't want to happen, which was Project 2025.
So there you have it. So Project 2025 is very much a big part of what's going to happen. I haven't read the Project 2025. I think it's interesting. A couple things that stand out to me is I remember a speech Donald Trump gave that calling all Christians to vote. He said, if you vote this time, you'll never have to vote again. I'll fix everything. You'll never have to vote again. This will be the time when you do that. Now, also, when I hear about this Heritage Foundation, I could be wrong in this, but I would assume that they're connected with the mandate, the 7 Mountain Mandate movement. I'm not 100% sure if they are or not, but it reminds me so much when you look in the Bible and you talk about the harlot that rides the beast and sits on the 7 hills or the 7 mountains, and it just reminds me so much of this group that kind of gets pulled into this. When you see this stuff, David, obviously on the outside, to me, when I look at this, if I didn't know better, if I didn't know that, or let's put it this way, if I didn't have my opinions, I would think this is great because these people are Christian people. They're trying to push a certain agenda. They're trying to clean up the education system, which is something that has to happen. It has to happen. The education system is a place that I've been saying it for years. You know, when Trump first got elected, I didn't understand why he didn't change the education system, because we just keep breeding these consistent, I'm not calling the kids failures, but failure of the system. This system's failed us in major ways, all the way from the bottom up. And so it sounds really good. The idea of making our money something great again sounds really good. There's all of these things about 2025, especially if you read books like this, if you read the stuff, the idea of what they believe this new age to be, which is the vanquishing of evil. There's a lot of really good sounding stuff there. When you see this stuff, David, what do you think of prophetically? Does this ring any bells, like as far as the way that the beast system is going to be perceived, maybe, or is there a time spoken of to where God's going to restore America? So, what do you think, David? I'm not going to give an opinion because I don't know. I've seen the testimony of Donald Trump saying that he's a believer now. He's changed his opinion since being shot. There's that possibility that wants to shine forth in my heart, that maybe he is a changed man and God's going to use him to bring the righteous to shine again, right? To shine in our country, and he's going to vanquish the wicked, and we're going to see prophetic things where that the wealth of the wicked is going to be transferred to the righteous. Everybody wants to see that. Another thing that I didn't even mention about 2025, this is a Jubilee year, right? According to the Jews and according to the Catholic Church, this is a Jubilee year. Also, according to the Essenes, Jubilee starting. And so a lot going on here. David, I want to get your kind of full scope take on this. What should we do as believers? Should we be looking out for things? Should we be paying attention? Let's hear it.
Well, something that bothers me is Donald Trump's lying. He's lying through his teeth when he says he doesn't know Kevin Roberts. He doesn't know what the Heritage Foundation is, or even who these people are. That's a lie. The Heritage Foundation has been one of the most powerful conservative think tank groups. It was way before even his first administration. He knows who these people are. He knows them personally. That's a lie. And when he says he doesn't know what Agenda 2025 is, that's a big porky. He knows what it is, and the only reason he's definitely lying, my question is, why is he lying? Why does he want to distance himself from this 2025 agenda? And in that document, in the Wikipedia article, it tells how many times Trump's name, I think like 70 times, Trump's name is mentioned in this Agenda 2025. As you can see, this video showed, his cabinet members are people that produce this document, and he don't know what it is That's a porky. He's lying, but the question is, why is he lying? Now, though, in 2019, and you mentioned the Seven Mountain Mandate, which is an extremely aggressive right-wing conservative movement that gets over into the religious aspect. And in 2019, Netflix produced a documentary, or they aired a documentary, I don't think they produced it, called The Family. And in this, it went into detail about how right-wing conservatives have a secret society that operates right out of a building on K Street that, they operate like a secret society, and it's not very pretty. And most believers, when they think of secret societies and dirty deeds done dirt cheap, we think of the left. They're so obvious, going along on their little yellow school bus, but we won't even consider the fact of what's behind the curtain over here on the right side. And the fact that there's obviously things here concerning 2025 that Mr. Trump's not being honest about, that troubles me. Why is he lying? And I don't have it all figured out yet. But, our last time we discussed Mr. Trump, I haven't changed. The Bible says to pray for our leaders, and I pray for Mr. Trump, and I will continue to. But I'm not a glass half full guy concerning the true heart and the drive of what's coming. I just have to remain skeptical. It doesn't feel good to me. That's all I'm saying. It just doesn't feel good to me.
And I would add to this, too, that there have been many times throughout history that men of God who study prophecy, who study the Bible, have believed that we are coming to a point in time to where things are going to shift. And a lot of people have predicted the coming age at certain periods, and it hasn't come to pass. So if history serves us correctly, nothing will happen in 2025. But there's a lot of things going on. We're at a point in time now to where we're truly able to be monitored. Everybody in the world just about is able to be monitored. They're coming out with digital currencies. Things are definitely shifting in favor of technology. The Elon Musk is getting ready to be placed in a position of power, and he is on the cusp of the technologies that a lot of people very much fear, including him. According to his own testimony, he fears. So there's a lot going on. There's, talks about this date going from historians to people who look at the signs and the stars to people who are prophecy people, etc. There's just so many things concerning this date that I felt like we had to at least bring it forth. As I suggested in the last broadcast we did about these type things, I would say that always pay attention. Don't jump on emotion. Don't go with your first emotion based on that. Don't attack and be on the narrow path. The Bible says not to go right or left, to be on the narrow path, and to be wise about things. Know what's going on before you act on anything. And with that being said, to love one another. The Bible says that this is how we show that we're his disciples, the love that we have for one another. When he separates the sheep from the goats in the final day, according to Matthew, he separates them, and the ones who, helped the poor, who helped the needy, visited those in jail, who did the things that were actually helping mankind, he said, you did those things, it's like you did it for me. I was the one that you helped. It was me. And a lot of people maybe have done all of these powerful works in God's name. They think, they've moved major crowds, they've cast out demons, they've done these things. And Jesus says, people are going to say, we've cast out demons in your name. We've done all of these things. And he's going to say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I didn't know you. And he gives the example, you didn't do any of these things for me. And so, look, we have to really understand what our scope here is as humans. What does God want from us? What does it take to be his hands and feet? And you'll find that the Bible is very clear on what that is. It's to love one another. All of the laws of God hang upon loving others and loving God. And so when we follow God's law and do what he allows us to do, and we are covered by the sacrifice of Jesus, because Jesus is not just an ascended master. What he is he's the King of Kings. He's the Master of Masters. He is the high priest who stands before us to be able to offer sacrifice for the sins that we've committed in this world. And so we need that, and we need to be grounded in these things, because a lot of this doctrine, a lot of these ideas are going to lead you on a rabbit trail that just leads you who knows where. And there's just, because it's constantly a path to enlightenment that people seem to never reach before they die, and then they die like a normal death like anybody else. And so we have to know that there is a hope. And so that's what I hope to convey with everything that we do, because I truly believe that. I'm a studier of the esoteric. I've studied the occult. I've studied the Bible, and I can say I'm firmly convinced that the truth is found in the Word of God, and that all mysteries are made known through the Word of God and through the Holy Spirit. And I believe that we're on the cusp of understanding all the mysteries out there. And so I'm thankful to be able to do this with a part of you guys, and I hope you guys subscribe. David, do you have anything last that you'd like to say before we end the show tonight?
Well, a couple final thoughts. What Jesus said in John 18:36. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it was, my servants would fight." And the scripture in 1 John 5:19, it says, "And we know that we are of God, and the whole world lieth in wickedness." I believe that's still true today. Some people try to make a biblical case that Israel is the nation of God, but Israel lies in wickedness. Obviously it does. Some people think that we're becoming more godly. Well, it's like Josiah's revival. When the revival of King Josiah took place, the idols were torn down. And I guarantee you that the biggest phallic symbol in the world in Washington, D.C., it ain't going nowhere. And the idea that people are all excited, well, now we're just going to kill babies in half the states. Now, if anyone really believed that the slaughter of an unborn child was the murder of an innocent, could we just passively endorse the taking of the lives of children in just half the states? I couldn't do that. And there were a few, bless their hearts and God bless you, that stood up against that. But the reason why, and let's just get real, the reason why that position was adopted is because that's what they had to do to get elected. God had nothing to do with that whatsoever in their thinking. So the idea that the things are coming here is a true move of God. There is something coming that's externalizing itself, but I draw clear lines of demarcation between that and the real kingdom of God.
Couldn't have said it better. Man, thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this broadcast. And if you did, we invite you to pound the like button with us. We do this on the count of three. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Thank you guys so much for hitting and pounding that like button. We appreciate it. And if you enjoyed anything about this broadcast, hit subscribe. We do this every week. We're going to have new content, more content coming out. So make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much. David, end us out.
Well, and I want to say, too, and I do, and I will continue to pray for President Trump, and I will certainly rejoice in everything that happens that will suppress ungodliness and bring forth godly values. And I'll just leave it with that. And once again, we want to thank each and every one of you that supports the Midnight Ride, that will go with us into these topics and dare to think about them and to air them out in the light of the Word of God. It is certainly very, very needful. So with that, until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.